Hello, my name is Robert D. Garamore. This is being recorded for Public History 705. About 13 years ago, I moved to the Rio Grande Valley. And as a historian, walking around and checking stuff out, I found this area to be absolutely fascinating as far as the history goes. And I'd like to share a little bit of that with you today. I moved down here and accepted a teaching position in Starr County. I actually live in this little town called Mission. I'm about 400 yards as the crow flies away from the Rio Grande River and Hidalgo County. And then you have Willacy and Cameron counties. Over here you have the Laguna Madre, which is an estuary between the island of Padre Island and the actual landmass. That's an absolutely phenomenal fishing area. Down here you have South Padre Island, which is where all the poor college students go to camp for a week on the beach. Depending upon your taste, you should go there or not on that week. Anyway, let me start off by telling you some of the history of this area and bring you up to date. This first slide is a guy by the name of Cabeza de Vaca. He's allegedly went through this area in about 1528. His story is he was an accountant for the Panfilio de Narvaez expedition. They ran into a hurricane. They got pushed off course. They were supposed to go explore Florida. They ended up in Texas. Four survived, and these four walked through Texas. One of the places they stopped was this little Indian village of Penitas in about 1528. And then they went up the Rio Grande River and over into New Mexico, and then they were found by an expedition that was headed north out of Mexico City about 7 years later. So it's a phenomenal adventure story if you're interested. Next, we fast forward the clock to the Texas Revolution. What was happening here is Texas was being inundated by Anglos from Kentucky and Tennessee and Louisiana. A lot of them had blown their lives up, like Davy Crockett, that they went bankrupt. He's got a famous saying that says, you can all go to hell, and I'm going to Texas. And what was happening in Texas is there was a basically mass flight of Anglos into the area, and what you had to do is you had to swear allegiance to Mexican government and become Catholic if you wanted to own land. And a lot of people were swearing allegiance, but they're saying, I'm not Catholic and I want the land anyway. And what's going to happen is these Anglos are going to start a revolution. Santa Anna is going to head north to put down the revolution. And what's going to happen is he's going to run into Sam Houston in San Jacinto in about April of 1836, and they're going to force him to sign over their northern state to a new nation called Texas. Six Flags of Texas. The second one will be actually the nation of Texas. Fast forward the clock. What's going to happen is we have the 63rd Cavalry that's going up and down the river patrolling the northern side of the river. The Mexicans are going to run into that cavalry and they're going to kill 11 and they're going to capture 46 of the 63rd Cavalry. James Polk is going to get bent out of shape about it. He's going to say American blood spilt on American soil and that's why we should go blow up Mexico. And this is the same spot that Abe Lincoln at the House says, hey, show me where this spot was, which leads to kind of a disagreement between who owns what. The big story is here that the Mexicans thought that the river, the Nueces River that runs into Corpus Christi was the northern border of their country, and the United States says, no, it's the Rio Grande River down here. And so this is what was in dispute. What's going to happen is going to be the Mexican-American War. We've got a guy by the name of John Quincy Adams. It's going to cut a deal with the Mexican Adams-Onis Treaty, and they're going to show us the top half of the 42nd parallel, which the Mexican-American boundary is supposed to be, and the United States is going to win, and we're going to settle for New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and California. 1848. The next big piece of the history down here is a guy by the name of Williams Jennings Bryan. Now, you remember him. He was a populist. He was from Nebraska. He basically did this, you shall not hang us on a cross of gold speech, which is going to win him the nomination for the Democratic side in 1896. He's going to go on to run for the President of the United States 2 more times. In 1900 against William McKinley, and then again in 1908 against William Taft. He's going to lose both of those. However, he is going to get a position in Dr. Woodrow Wilson's cabinet as the Secretary of State in 1913 for his help with the political party. Interesting enough, William Jennings Bryan is also a citizen and he lives here in Mission, Texas. He was called a winter Texan. He is from Nebraska, but what's happening is a lot of the commercial farmers are moving down from Nebraska to hang out here in the Rio Grande Valley, where they're just in the 19 teens. They're starting to make this a Garden of Eden down here. It's they're doing irrigation, they're doing citrus fruits, grapefruits, oranges, pineapples, sugar cane. Pretty much you name it was growing here, watermelons, cantaloupe. Anyway, so he actually is a citizen of Mission, Texas. And if you're a Cowboys fan, Tom Landry was born and raised here too. The next part of the story is a guy by the name of George Parr. George Parr is a political boss in South Texas. And he has an interesting phenomenon is he is going to help LBJ become a senator for Texas. And we'll get into that story in just a minute. I want to show you this slide. It's kind of interesting that they decided to make this a congressional district. This is the 15th congressional district in Texas. It's pushed away from the coast, as you can see, because the coast was rich cotton farmers and merchants that were involved in international trade and stuff. This area out here where the 15th congressional is Anglo ranchers, and these ranchers had these huge estates, and they had hundreds of illegals working for them and such, and that becomes a actual district that's going to keep a guy by the name of Garner in power from 1901 to 1933. Garner is actually, right here's a picture of him. Cactus Jack is going to be from this congressional district. He's going to run in 1901 until 1933 when Franklin Roosevelt picks him up as the Vice President of the United States. So I'm telling you that there's some powerful people that are coming from South Texas. I was surprised to find these folks down here. The other interesting one is this guy, Lyndon Baines Johnson. They're going to call him Landslide Lyndon. The interesting thing about him is he is going to get, in 1948, he is going to run for a vacated seat as a senator here in the state of Texas. Now, at this time period of 1948, the entire of Texas is Democrat. So if you win the Democratic ticket, you're pretty much going to win the general election. Well, he's going against a guy by the name of Coke Stevenson, who happens to be the governor of the state. And what's going to happen is they're going to do their campaigning, and they're going to go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And Coke Stevenson actually wins the vote. They count the votes. Lyndon Johnson is going to call George Parr down in the 15th congressional district. He says, we need about 1,500 votes or we're going to lose this election. And George Parr says, no problem, we'll take care of you. And what's going to happen is when the final vote count comes out of District 15, Lyndon Johnson is going to win the state. Now we're talking about over 3 million votes, and the 15th district is the last one to report, and they report, and they're going to throw Johnson over the top by 87 votes to become the new senator or on the general ticket for the 1948 senatorial election for the state of Texas. So a lot of political influence down here. We've got the Vice President of the United States, and we've got Lyndon Johnson, oh, by the way, who was the Vice President and then the President of the United States. There's a lot more history that we can go into a little bit of detail here. This is what my paper is going to be on, is there's lots of stuff going on down here across that border where you have a Mexican Revolution going on, and if you're on the wrong team in the Mexican Revolution, you just jump across the river until the revolution goes away, and then you go back home. And what's going to happen is we have a bunch of immigrants coming back and forth that are displaced because of this Mexican Revolution. But what we have down here is in the populace is a lot of people don't know if you're a Mexican or you're a Tejano Mexican, because a lot of people are born on this side of the river or they're born on the other side of the river. It doesn't really matter because all of them are Hispanics and all of them speak Mexican. Most of the population doesn't speak English, except for the big time corporate farmers that moved in with Lyndon Baines Johnson, his buddies, and William Jennings Bryan brought their buddies down. And they were the ones starting these huge corporate farms. And the reason they were doing that is because they had cheap labor and cheap land. And they use the Rio Grande River as a irrigation device for the whole thing. So it's some great history, and I can't believe it's already 10 minutes are gone. So I'm going to have to stop there, and then we're going to have to transcribe this and get it all into you guys so you can comment. Thank you.